Howdy folks, welcome back to another Armored Warfare replay. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and this is a PvE Operation Hardcore. This is Wildfire. And for today, I have myself in the Tier 7 Premium, the Type 90. It is a main battle tank from Japan. We will take a quick look over it here in a moment. Take a quick look at it here so you can take a look at it. Pretty nifty looking tank. Looks a lot like a Leopard 2, and that's because it is actually based on the Leopard 2 with some modifications that Japan would make. Alright, so let's begin the history here. The Type 90 is a Japanese main battle tank that was designed to replace the Type 61 and the Type 74. Now, from what I understand, doing the research, there actually still is a few Type 74s in service, mostly with reserve units. The design process would begin shortly after the Type 74 entering service.
Cartel forces are after our ballistic missiles. We'll call out their position from the base. You go get them.
With the first two prototypes appearing in 1980. Both prototypes were armed with a Japanese 120mm main gun. Testing and design modifications would continue until 1986. A second series of 4 prototypes would appear.
They're stealing our ordnance. Don't let those helicopters take off.
Would appear between 1986 and 1988. The new prototypes would incorporate changes from the first batch of prototypes. The new prototypes would be armed with a Rheinmetall 120mm smoothbore main gun. Trials would continue until 1989, with the tank entering production in 1999. 1990, not 1999. My mistake.
Identify.
Hostile PC.
With the designation of Type 90. The first 30 tanks would be produced later that year. The Type 90 would be produced from 1990 to 2009. A total of 341 Type 90s would be produced. The Type 90 has never been deployed overseas, nor has it seen combat. As of this date, the Type 90 only operator is Japan. The Type 90 mounts a 120mm smoothbore main gun. It is a Rheinmetall 140mm L44 120mm cannon. The cannon is licensed produced by Japan Steelworks Limited. The Type 90 has received many upgrades over its years of service. These upgrades would mostly be to the optics, ballistics computer, laser rangefinder, gun stabilization system, and even an automated target tracking system. The Type 90 is loaded by a mechanical bustle autoloader. It is fed by a conveyor type and was developed by Mitsubishi of Japan. The autoloader allows the Type 90 to be crewed by 3. This would be crewed by a commander, gunner, and a driver. The Type 90 also has a licensed built Browning M2 machine gun mounted on top of the turret in a bustle. It leans more towards the left side of the turret, which is actually the gunner side of the turret. And it also has a 7.62mm machine gun as a coaxial. The Type 90 uses a very similar armor profile to that of the Leopard 2 A4. It uses modular ceramic plates and steel, creating a composite type armor. The power pack of the Type 90 is a Mitsubishi 10ZG 32WT 10-cylinder 2-stroke diesel engine, providing 1,500 horsepower. And it is also mated to the transmission. It's a power pack system. So whenever the engine needs extenuous service or needs replaced, they just rip out the whole power pack and put in a new power pack. It takes about roughly an hour to an hour and a half to do replacements to it. Next thing to point out is its hydropneumatic suspension, which is on a torsion bar system, very similar to the Altair and other vehicles of this type, such as the K1A1. And that's really all that can be said about the vehicle. It doesn't have extensive combat history because it's never been in combat. It doesn't have any overseas users even to this day. One thing to talk about is every year there is a competition held actually here in the States where various countries, Germany, Japan is one of them, the US, bring tanks to the country and they run trials of their tanks. And so far what the trials have showed is actually the Type 90 is a very capable tank, which really won't surprise me because really looking into it, it's kind of a collaboration between America, Germany, and even some from South Korea. As I said earlier, the suspension is actually based on the South Korean K1A1 suspension. So all that being said, how is the vehicle in armored warfare? Well, it's not really that bad. It is a Tier 7 main battle tank. It's very similar in playstyle to the Leopard. However, it's got the hydropneumatic suspension. Now there's multiple benefits to the hydropneumatic suspension. The tank has a weak lower glacis. So if you're on flat ground, you can lower the suspension, and the suspension is oh so low when lowered that the tank almost drags on the ground, making the lower glacis hard to hit. But the benefit is if the suspension is raised, you can actually increase your gun depression and fight on types of hills and terrains that you normally could typically not fight on with more conventional suspensions, such as what is on the M1 Abrams and what is on the Leopard 2. Otherwise, there's a couple other benefits here. It does have a lower penetration with its Sabot ammunition than the Leopard does. It actually has 650 where the Leopard 2 has 700. The alpha damage though is also just a pinch lower. However, its rate of fire is much faster, giving it a higher DPM. There's other things to point out too though. On the front of the turret ring is a little bit more exposed than it is on the Leopard 2, and that is a weak spot on this vehicle. But because of the nature of the suspension, it's easier to keep the vehicle hauled down.
They took out my sight.
There is a couple things about the Type 90 that's actually better than the Leopard 2, and there's a couple things that's actually better on the Leopard 2 than from the Type 90. All that being said, if you really like the Leopard, I would say go out there and get this tank. It's not a bad machine. It's not a great machine either. It's kind of like the Leopard. It's kind of just a very average machine, which is what makes it actually good in its own way. It's average everywhere. Now, one thing that this does benefit from over the Leopard is actually the frontal turret armor facing, the frontal hull armor facing, just the armor all the way around the vehicle is actually better than it is on the Leopard 2. Trying to get some really sneaky shots here on the T80. As you can see, the T80 is mostly covered up. But it's having problems getting shots on that lower glacis. But I would say if you're a fan of the Leopard, definitely get this tank if you're looking for a Tier 7 premium main battle tank. If you're not a fan of the Leopard, I wouldn't say go out and buy this, but keep your fingers crossed that maybe you'll get lucky and get the rental. I actually have a friend of mine who actually despises the Leopard tanks in Armored Warfare, but he does have the Type 90 and he really enjoys the Type 90. His opinion about it is the Type 90 is actually a better Leopard too. And it's mostly got to do with the fact of the suspension. It's easier to keep the vehicle hull down and in combat. So we're about ready to finish up here. We have about a minute left.
Identify target.
Hostile PC.
Shit, we're hit.
Now this is actually where things go bad. I end up getting shot with like 4 different TOW missiles. I'm going to try to position here. Try and get in a hull down position.
We're hit.
And I just took another hard hit there, but I bounced 2 more shots.
They took out my sight.
There we go. Get another penetrating hit on that Bradley. And that Bradley is toast. Now we're really hurting from that.
Sights up.
Try and get a shot on the Anders here.
Reloading.
There we go. Get a shot on the Anders. Another shot on the Anders. Are we going to reload before the time is over? It doesn't matter because the teammate got that final kill. Here's a Bradley. And I won't be able to get a shot off on him.
Sams are taking out their cargo plane.
Anyway, folks, let's pull up the results here so you can see the final results of that match. So I did almost 19,000 damage, spotted 8 enemy vehicles, and destroyed 4. Grabbed myself a blue star, a fistful of credits, some battle coins, and experience. And I would be #1 for damage overall. I am the only Tier 7 in a dominated Tier 8 match. And I actually did better than everyone in damage and in spotting. Dominated the spotting. Oh, sorry. There's one vehicle that was above me in spotting. My mistake. But generally, when you consider Tier 7 versus all these Tier 8s, I pretty much dominated the match. So there you go, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed the replay and learned about the Type 90. It was definitely a pretty interesting vehicle. There's actually still some snippets I'm trying to research and find out about the vehicle in certain areas, especially when it comes to the placement of the 50 cal. I find it very interesting. The 50 cal is actually on top of the turret instead of the center where the commander or the gunner could use it. It leans more towards the left side, which is where the gunner is placed. I found that very interesting. Over the right side, it could have been more towards the right side where it was be more useful to the the commander. It's just a very interesting thing because of how American tank doctrine is, and it might be a tank doctrine type of thing. Anyway, folks, once again, thank you very much for watching and listening to me ramble, and hopefully I will see you all for the next video.